Good morning. As I was telling you, let's begin with module 3. And in module 3, we have certain concepts regarding random numbers, random analysis of random numbers, random signals, random processes, and all that. But since you are already familiar with the theory, you have already done statistics and analysis. That part is not included for exam also. So hopefully I need not review that part. Okay. And only what is needed as and when we need it, we'll speak about that in this theory. Okay. We don't need too much of it. Only we need to remember the basic reason why random signal or random process analysis is needed here. Remember, the actual information which we plan on communicating is a random signal. Yes or no? So it is not deterministic. Every time you have some information to communicate or transmit, it surely is a random signal because it is an idea which originates in the human mind. It can be some kind of signal like say an electric current, an image, a video, temperature, pressure, speech, anything. The actual information which you want to transmit can be anything, and basically it has a random nature. Okay. So only because it has a random nature, it has some meaning that we have to transmit it from one point to another. Communication has some meaning mainly because we have to deal with random signals. If it was deterministic, then there was no point in sending one signal from one point to another, taking care of so much of things in between. Why should you amplify the signal? Why should you increase its power level? Why should you modulate? Why should you take care of some interface between air and your electric circuit like antenna? Then you should take care of noise in between. You need not go to all that trouble if at all the signal was deterministic. Because if you say you sent this signal at the receiver should be easily able to what? He should be able to make his own signal because it is a deterministic signal. You say, I sent a sine signal like this. The receiver will also be able to reproduce the same signal at his own side. There wouldn't have been any need for communication at all, right? So please remember the fact that our information signals are all random in nature. First point. And the second point is all the signals which affect our information signals, like noise in the channel. When the signal is traveling in the channel, it gets affected with a random frequency signal known as noise. And it is going to, yeah, it is going to affect the behavior of the signal. So though you have sent a perfect signal from the transmitting end, what you receive will not be same as what was transmitted. What you receive will be reduced in amplitude, it will be reduced in terms of power level, and it will also be mixed with unwanted electrical signals known as noise. So, noise is also another random signal. Just like how our actual information is a random signal, noise is also a random signal. And when this noise gets mixed with the information signal which we are trying to transmit, it will create another random signal. Noise added to information will create another random signal. And that is why most of the analysis which we do here will be taking care of random signals and random processes. So how do we analyze or how do we measure certain parameters in random signals? We'll use the mean, we'll use variance, right? First moment is the mean, the second moment is the variance or standard deviation. All these things are standard parameters which we use to measure the performance of random signals. Other than that, we have many other properties like autocorrelation, cross correlation, right? Covariance, autocovariance. All these are various measures or various ways of dealing with random signals and processes. So please read through that. You have already studied everything in your last semester. It was in third or fourth sem? I think fourth sem, right?
It's from fourth sem.
Yeah. So please just revise anyway, you know, and as and when we need it, we'll just, normally we'll be speaking about first and second moments, that is mean and variance. Usually we don't go beyond that. Sometimes we'll talk about autocorrelation and also cross correlation and power spectral density also. So these are some important terms which we need to know when we start off with this. Okay. So let me move on. Basically what you need for the exam starts from here. Noise and its effects on communication systems. Okay. Just give me a minute. Okay. So moving on to what is noise. We know noise is unwanted electrical energy which gives rise to either audible or visual disturbances in our information signal which passes through channels and communication systems. It leads to error in the received signals. So as I was telling you, though you transmit a signal which is perfect, because of this unwanted electrical disturbance or unwanted electrical energy, which could get added either in the channel when the signal is moving through air or something, or it can also get added at the receiver. Remember, all electronic components also generate noise. I'll talk about that in a short time. So noise could be added either in the receiver or in the channel, and it will surely cause distortion. If it is a voice or if it is a speech signal, you will hear distortion in the audio, like in terms of clicks. Sometimes when you're listening to someone on a phone or a radio, you normally hear a constant noise like a waterfall in the background, right? So it's like as though there is a waterfall in the background, that kind of constant noise keeps coming. Sometimes it will be in terms of just clicks. It will start with click noises, and once that click noise increases, it will be a continuous noise. So this happens with audio. With video, how do you normally understand that it is noise? How do you understand noise is affecting the video? Usually it appears like a snowfall. So if you are watching something in the TV or a video somewhere, usually it is rare we see such things now. But in spite of it, it is like there is a snowfall in the background. It looks like there is snow falling. That is the kind of appearance on a video or image. So all this is due to contribution from this unwanted electrical signal known as noise. So noise is a limiting factor in communication systems, because if there was no noise, actually there won't be any problem at all in communication. See, we have devised so many ways of overcoming limitations of communication. Long distance communication, we said if we modulate, amplify and transmit using antenna, we can do long distance. So everything, all those limitations of communication we have overcome. And if at all this noise wasn't there at all, then literally there wouldn't be any problem at all for communication. But then this noise is there and it is unavoidable. You have to deal with it. So in general, noise describes an unwanted signal which affects the wanted signal. And these unwanted signals will arise from a variety of sources which can fall under one of the following two categories. Man-made noise, or usually when it comes from human source, okay, like automobile ignitions. See, all automobiles, when there is ignition, that will create a special type of noise, known as ignition noise. Then other than that, there are many ways industries create some noise, and you have speakers on with programs, you have trains, buses creating noises, so many things. All this can come under the class of man-made noise. And we have naturally occurring random noise. Okay. So basically, we'll say, I'll come to the classification a little later. So some examples of noise are, say, interference which comes because of the 50 hertz AC. Remember, the 50 hertz AC wires are needed everywhere. So in front of every house you have poles, you have that 50 hertz AC line, and the electricity is supplied to all houses through that. This 50 hertz signal, when it interferes with some other signal, it will add a hum or a noise in the background, okay? And it will also create some harmonics. So your SMPS or switch mode power supplies will have noise. Thyristor circuits, as I told you, automobile ignition systems like spark plugs in the cars, motors, etc. So in principle, interference can be reduced or completely eliminated by doing some careful engineering, like a good design, suppression, shielding, something like that. So depending on the type of man-made noise or depending on the type of interference, if we want to take care of it or if we want to limit it, if we do some proper design and good engineering, you will be able to take care of it. In the sense, this interference would be deterministic, okay? But remember that whenever the interference is removed, still there is some noise which will be occurring. So you know that this interference is coming because of the ignition and you try to use some shielding there, and you know the power supply is creating a noise or hum. You enclose that power supply in a thicker sheet of wire or plastic so that it won't pass through the radiations, the electric interference what it was creating, it shouldn't pass it through. So we can take care of all those things which are deterministic, but in spite of taking care of all those things, you still have something which couldn't be taken care, and that is random noise. Okay, so naturally occurring random noise is present due to both internal and external sources. So what we want to know from this slide is man-made noise can be taken care of to some extent and avoided, but naturally occurring noise cannot be avoided. Okay. So what is this naturally occurring noise? Naturally occurring noise can be external or internal. External sources are like atmospheric disturbances. For example, storms, lightning, ionosphere effect, so on. We also have something known as sky noise or cosmic noise, which includes noise coming from other galaxies. Imagine we are in the Milky Way galaxy. There are so many other galaxies here, and this galactic noise is also present to affect our communication. Imagine how far these electrical disturbances will travel. Okay. Solar noise is there, noise coming from sun. You have solar flares, you have so many things on the sun, which causes electrical disturbances to the signal. Hotspot occurring on stars like sun and all. Because of oxygen and water vapor resonance in the Earth's atmosphere, these hotspots are also present. Okay, thermally very hot regions. So all these sources can have different types of effect on the radio transmission and design of a given radio system and any communication system like TV, satellite, whatever, microwave communication systems. So we have to take into effect the presence of these noises, and we have to consider what would be their effect on the signal and how it could be minimized. So we can't remove it completely. As I told you, naturally occurring noise like solar noise, atmospheric noise, galactic, it will always be there. So you should find a way to overcome, or let's say find a way to minimize it. Natural internal noise will be due to active and passive electronic devices. This will normally be happening at the front end of the receiver. So the initial parts of the receiver, like the band pass filter and the low noise amplifier, which we have in the initial parts, they in whatever electronic components we use in them, like resistors, capacitors, transistors, whatever you use, both active and passive, those elements will have some inbuilt noise. Even at normal temperature, the resistors keep moving in, the electrons keep moving in the resistors, which causes some noise. And that noise will be affecting the signal at the front end of the receiver, mainly because the signal amplitudes will be very small. Remember, at the transmitter side, these things will not create any problem, because at transmitter side, the signal amplitude is very high. Power level of the signal is very high. But at the receiver side, because the signal received will be in milli or microvolts. Remember, we spoke about sensitivity of a radio receiver, which would be in the range of microvolts. If I say sensitivity is 1 microvolt, that means a receiver, even if it receives a signal having a strength of 1 microvolt, it should be able to detect and demodulate it correctly. It should be able to extract the information even from such a low level signal. So practically we are dealing with very low level signals at the receiver. So all such internal noises due to active and passive devices used in the receiver will add on noise to the received signal, and this noise should be taken care of, or its effect should be analyzed. So there are various mechanisms which produce noise in devices. Okay, so we know what is noise already, and noise is a limiting factor on the power required to transport information bearing signals all over communication channels. So whenever I have to transmit signals everywhere in communication, this noise puts a limiting factor on the power, in the sense how much power I have to transmit so that it will be least affected with noise, or how much should be the increased power level so that the noise would not affect the signal to a large extent. For example, I told you in radio receivers, noise produces waterfall-like noise, clicks in the speaker. In TV, it produces colored spots like snow superimposed on the picture screen. Okay, so looking at this diagram, you can have a basic idea of classification of noise. See, noise can be classified as internal or external. Okay, and we know external means this happens outside to the system, outside the communication system when it happens. That is external noise. Something which happens within the communication system, like at the receiver. The noise which is created at the receiver and which adds, that is internal noise. Okay, so please remember, what happens outside the communication system is external, what happens inside is internal. Next, external noise can be under two categories, man-made noise and natural noise. We have already discussed what are the different sources of man-made noise, and even natural external noise also we have spoken in brief. It can be something like atmospheric noise, disturbances in the atmosphere like storms, lightning and so on, right? Thunder, all that create what? Atmospheric noise. And extraterrestrial noise is solar noise, galactic noise, cosmic noise. All these come under extraterrestrial noise. So we have spoken in brief about that. We'll speak a little more now. As I told you, extraterrestrial noise will be solar noise, cosmic noise, galactic noise, all this. Now, coming to the internal noise, the noise which is going to be internal to the communication system, we can have thermal noise. This is the most important type of noise which we will consider in almost all our analysis, because this would be the largest affecting noise among everything. Okay, and short noise occurs, partition noise, we have flicker noise in active devices like MOSFETs and transistors, it occurs. Finally, we'll talk in general about white noise, which is another form of this thermal noise, or let's say a generalized form of thermal noise. Okay, so we'll be speaking about mainly thermal noise, short noise and white noise. All these are inherent parts of the electronics which we use, and all the electronics present at the receiver will be contributing to this internal noise. So already we spoke about this external noise. You can just see what extra we have here. Man-made noise occupies the frequency range 1 to 600 megahertz. Various sources are automobile, aircraft ignition, electric welding machines, switch gears, commutator sparking. Do all of you know what is a commutator? You have studied about commutators in your electrical, right? And even here, what is a commutator? Anybody? What do you mean by a commutator?
Ma'am, it's a device used to change direction of current.
It is a device
Used to change the direction of current flow.
Yeah, so it is a device, something similar to a switching device, which helps you in changing the positions. As I change the positions of a commutator, it will have segments, right? A commutator has segments, and depending on the connections made, say I can have, for example, 2 or 3 segments in a commutator, and there will be a brush. Depending on the connections made by this commutator brush, say the commutator brush makes the connection with segment 1, whatever information is there, whatever connection is there to this segment 1, that passes on to the transmission line. So usually what we do in the communication systems, we keep one segment as the transmitter, one segment as the receiver. So usually we are going to have two segments. So even in your mobile phones everywhere, if this brush is in contact with the transmitter would be sending a signal which is sent on the communication line, right? And if it comes in contact with the receiver, then something will be received on this communication line which will be passed on to the receiver circuitry for demodulation and getting the information. So you can have a simple connection like this, two segment commutator, one segment connected to a transmitter. So whenever you're transmitting information, it will be connected here. Whenever you're receiving information, it will be connected here. And this transition or switch over from one to another will happen at high speed. Because normally when we are in a telephonic conversation, we'll be able to listen as well as speak. Even in that case, this is switching over so fast that small losses in the signal in between will be made up. It can be reconstructed without any loss perfectly. So that's about, and whenever it makes this change, we have another electrical commutator also, anyway, which creates large amount of sparking. Whenever the change happens, there will be sparks. Okay, then leakage will be there from high voltage lines, so on. It can be minimized at the sources by using suppressors or better engineering design of the components. Man-made noise. Natural noise is generated by natural sources which cannot be avoided and which has to be dealt with. So atmospheric noise originates due to lightning discharges and other electrical disturbances like thunderstorms, etc. occurring in the atmosphere. So atmospheric noise usually has radio frequency components distributed over a wide frequency range, and normally they are random in nature, and the strength of this atmospheric noise is inversely proportional to the frequency. In the sense, the lesser the frequency, the effect of noise is higher. The higher the frequency, the effect of this atmospheric noise is lesser. So at operating frequencies more than 30 megahertz, the effect of atmospheric noise is quite less. Okay. Next, coming to extraterrestrial noise. This noise originates from sun and other distant stars. For example, the solar noise. So this is mainly because of the high temperature as high as 6000 degrees centigrade and present on the sun. And also the sun is quite close to the earth. It is in close proximity to the earth compared to other stars, right? So sun is an intense source of radio energy and it contributes lots of noise. So over a very broad spectrum, it will be contributing noise. And extra noise will also be generated on the sun whenever we have corona flares or sunspots. Remember, the sunspots will be these corona flares and sunspots. They'll create a very strong magnetic field, which will create lots of disturbances to our electrical communication. And normally this happens once in 11 years. And I think all of you would have faced at least one such thing, knowingly or unknowingly. You were quite young. So there will be lots of disturbances coming from the sun during these sunspots. Okay. And cosmic noise is radiated by distant stars, pulsars, quasars, so on. It is going to be present over a wide range, but it has the highest impact in the frequency range 20 megahertz to 150 megahertz. Okay, this is the range in which it will have most effect. Black body noise will also occur, and if we could adjust the antenna, the directional properties of antenna, we can try to reduce this to some extent. Now, moving on to internal noise. We spoke about external noise. In internal noise, I told you thermal noise is the major one. It's always present in electronic systems. Short noise is not so very significant. It is specific to certain active devices like diodes, FETs, IGFETs, insulated gate. Okay. And usually we try to use an insulated gate to avoid this short noise in FETs. All transistors generate different types of non-white noise. We'll talk about what is that. And it may or may not be very significant. Of all these noise sources, we said thermal noise, which will also come under the category of white noise, is considered to be most significant, and we'll consider its effect in our communication systems. So, in general, when we are analyzing the effect of noise on all communication systems, more commonly we'll be talking about white noise. And that too, this white noise is mainly coming from thermal noise, and also we'll consider additive white noise. We'll not consider the multiplicative noise because that analysis is much more, let's say, much more involved, more complexities. So I think only in your 8th sem or so, when we study wireless systems, you will be talking about multiplicative noise effects like fading and all. Fading is another name for multiplication of noise with the signal. Anyway, here we talk about mainly additive noise and analyzing systems in the presence of additive noise is what we will consider. And mainly this noise gets added in the front end of the receiving systems. Receiver front end electronics is the source of the internal white additive noise. Okay, other than that, I told you many active devices like diodes, transistors, ICs, they exhibit a low frequency noise, which we call as flicker noise. Okay, what is this flicker noise? So it is also known as 1 by F noise. The mean square value of this noise is proportional to 1 by F to the power of n, where F is the frequency and n is normally 1. So at higher frequencies, this noise is less, and at lower frequencies, it is significant. It mainly occurs due to impurities in the material, which in turn cause fluctuations in charges. So this is mainly active device noise. Okay, it is significant in transistors and diodes. Moving on to short noise. The first type of internal noise which we have to study is short noise. This short noise was originally used to describe noise due to random fluctuations in electron emission from cathodes in vacuum tubes. Remember, the earlier diodes and transistors were vacuum tube devices. So you would have seen the picture, very large tubes where all the air would be removed from they'll create vacuum inside those tubes. They'll place a electrical cathode, they'll place an anode screen, and there will be a gate or grid in between to accelerate the electrons to strike the screen. The electrons will be created by the, are you aware of vacuum devices? Something like this. These were the oldest known electrical or electronic devices, I can say. We would have a cathode here. This cathode it's taking some delay. This cathode is connected to some external power supply, okay, and this cathode emits electrons. It's going to emit electrons. Here I'm going to have at this end, I will have an anode. This will be the anode. This will be the cathode. And in between, I'm going to have something known as accelerating anodes. Okay, I'll have some accelerating anodes and all that, which will accelerate these electrons to very high speeds so that they strike this anode screen at very high speed. And when they strike the screen anode, it creates current. So there would be a current flow in these devices. So older transistors would be something like this. There are power supplies, all this. So I have many things in between, a grid, accelerating anode, and so many things. These are our old electronic devices, and basically lots of noise was generated within these devices, and initially this short noise described that noise which used to come into picture in these vacuum tubes, okay, because of electron emission happening in the cathodes. But later on, this concept was extended to our semiconductor devices. Your normal diodes, your normal transistors will also have short noise to some extent. So even in semiconductor devices, this short noise is present. That's why we are studying it. Okay. Why it occurs in semiconductors? It occurs due to liberation of charge carriers, which have some discrete amount of charge. So in every electronic active device like diode or transistor, remember we usually have what? Emitter region, the base region, the collector region, and you have external supplies, right? So you will be working with lots of external supplies and all that. Depending on the type of transistor, there will always be charge carriers liberated from emitter and it will be collected at the collector. These discrete amounts of charges in the potential barrier region. Remember, between two different semiconductors, we always have a depletion layer which is called the potential barrier region, and the presence of these carriers will cause short noise. So small discrete units of charge, the electrons, whatever, usually they are the electrons or ions. Small discrete units of charge, they give rise to a current, which is effectively a series of current pulses, which is defined by this equation. So this is called the short noise current in PN junctions. You see, this is a mean square value. So IN alone I am not taking, I am taking IN. So we don't derive this equation. You just have to remember the mean square value of short noise current, IN dash whole square, is defined as twice the sum of the DC current plus I naught here represents the reverse saturation current. So IDC is the direct majority current in a PN junction. I naught is the reverse saturation current. QE is the charge on an electron, which is normally 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. And B represents the bandwidth of the noise. Effective noise bandwidth we call. And since it is a mean square value, the unit is not just amperes, it is ampere square. since this is in square, it is the square as well as mean. Mean square value means average of the square, right? So these are the different terms. IDC is the direct current, I naught reverse saturation, QE electron charge, and B is the noise bandwidth. This short noise is also going to have uniform spectral density similar to thermal noise. Anyway, before going to thermal noise, let me show a little more derivation for this short noise. Yeah. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this short noise, we have already spoken that it arises in electronic devices like diodes and transistors because of the discrete nature of the current flow. In the sense, electrons are flowing one by one. That's a discrete electron flowing from one end to the other or from one region to another. That discrete nature is the main reason for this short noise effect. For example, in a photodetector, a current pulse is generated every time an electron is emitted by the cathode, right? So how does a photodetector have a current flowing? Every time there is light falling on the device, then it will emit a electron, or it will emit one negative charge carrier known as electron, which flows in the external circuit constituting a current. Okay, that's the way a photodetector works. Light falling on it, it emits electrons which flows in an external circuit, creating a current which is proportional to the amount of light falling on it. Okay. So these electrons are naturally emitted at random times. Let's say those times are denoted as tau k. Okay, where k lies between minus infinity to plus infinity. It's also assumed that random emissions of electrons have been happening for some time. Let's assume it's a photodetector and it is randomly emitting electrons for some long time. Okay. So, how do I denote the total current flowing in the photodetector? Let's say h of t minus tau k will represent the current pulse generated in one time. Okay, at the time tau k. If I say h of t minus tau k represents the current pulse which is created by one emitted electron which was emitted at the time tau k, we know that many such electrons are emitted randomly by the photodetector as light falls on it. So, the total current can be the sum of all the current pulses emitted by each individual electron. Every individual electron generates one current pulse h of t minus tau k. Similarly, if I take a sum of all the current pulses due to each and every electron which was emitted for a long amount of time, if I take a summation of all these pulses, I am going to get the total current flowing in the photodetector, right? So I can write it as a summation of k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity, h of t minus tau k. So here k represents the subscript of the time tau. So it can be 1, 2, 3, whatever. Depending on at what time the electron was emitted, that particular time will be considered here. And this process is a stationary process. We call it as a short noise process. So the other way of representing the short noise current we had one representation seen in the form of mean square current, IN square. The other way is like this. Okay. Now, let's try to find the number of electrons emitted, n of t, within a given interval of time 0 to t. Say there is a given interval of time 0 to t, and I want to know how many electrons have been emitted, and the value of which increases by 1 each time an electron is emitted. Remember the count, n of t represents the count of electrons, right? It is, let's say it will increase by 1 every time a new electron is emitted. I have this figure which shows the count of electrons being emitted. Can you see this? N of t is the y-axis. That count value is ranging 1, 2, 3, so on. The number of electrons emitted. At time t1 or tau1, 1 electron. At t2, it is going to 2. Likewise. So, the number is changing at every time interval. The number of electrons emitted is changing. Okay. Now, let's consider the mean value of number of electrons V, and if I want to find the mean of the number of electrons emitted between time t and t plus t naught, it can be defined as lambda into t naught. What does E stand for? It is the expected value. Expected value means it is mean, right? We are trying to find the mean of the number of electrons, which is denoted as V, and how many electrons are emitted between one time t and another time t plus t naught. I am going to consider it as lambda into t naught, where lambda represents the arrival rate of the electrons. Say the electrons are arriving at, say, 1 per microsecond or 1 per nanosecond. That rate of arrival of electrons is called lambda. Okay. So, the total number of electrons emitted in the interval t to t plus t naught can be given as V represents the total number of electrons emitted between the time t and t plus t naught. So, n of t represents number of electrons emitted at time t or emitted before time t, and n of t plus t naught represents number of electrons emitted at time t plus t naught. So difference between them gives me total number of electrons which was emitted between a time t and t plus t naught. And this number follows a Poisson distribution with mean value equal to lambda t naught. We have already told the mean value of this is lambda times t naught. Here only we saw the expected or mean value of the number of electrons is lambda t naught, and the total number of electrons is n of t plus t naught minus n of t, and this follows a Poisson distribution. Okay. You would have studied different types of distributions. If not, you can just see how a Poisson distribution looks. It looks something quite similar to this graph. Okay. So, in particular, the probability that k electrons are emitted in the time interval between t and t plus t naught is defined by a probability equation. Say, the total number of electrons that are emitted, we are taking it as V. So, if I want k electrons to be emitted, then I should consider probability that V is equal to k. Say V is a value which may be 10, 20, 100, whatever. And if I want this to be equal to one particular value, say 25 electrons or so, how do I express that in the form of an equation? That is the probability distribution in a Poisson distribution. So the probability that the total number of electrons is equal to k is given as lambda into T naught to the power of k divided by k factorial into e power minus lambda k. This is called as a Poisson distribution equation. Here k value can be 0, 1, anything. So if you want one particular number, k electrons to be emitted, it always follows this Poisson distribution, and the probability of getting that number of electrons is defined by this equation. Okay. So as I told you, we don't have a detailed characterization of the short noise, and it is quite a difficult mathematical task. So let's simply check what are the results pertaining to the first two moments. So what is the mean of this? The mean of short noise mu x is defined as lambda into integral minus infinity to plus infinity h of t dt. So lambda is the arrival rate of the electrons. H of t is the waveform of a single current pulse. We have already considered, considered h of t minus tau k, where tau k represents the electron arrived at time tau k. So if I simply consider the electron arriving at 0, and for different values of t if you take, it will give me a total summation or integral of all the current pulses. Mean is always the rate at which electrons are arriving into the sum of all the current pulses. Okay. So this is how we consider the mean. The second moment is the autocovariance function x of t. It is defined as what? It is going to find the relation between one current pulse h of t with another current pulse that arrives at tau at time t plus tau. Okay, shifted version. So what are the relation between the present and the shifted version? That is given by an autocovariance function Cx of tau we define. Again, this is product of arrival rate into integral of h of t into h of t plus tau dt. This is also known as Campbell's theorem. So these are the two relations which you should remember. Let me say 2 or 3 relations which we should remember with respect to short noise process. Okay, and in a special case where h of t is considered as a rectangular pulse of amplitude a and width t. The duration of the rectangular pulse is t and amplitude a. The mean of the short noise process is given as what? What is the area under a rectangular pulse? I am not able to write here. Anyway, area under a rectangular pulse of amplitude a and width t, it will be a into t, right? A into t. And it should also be multiplied with the rate of arrival of those rectangular pulses, which is given as lambda. So the mean value is lambda at. Its covariance function will be defined like this. Unfortunately, we are not deriving any of these. Okay, so we just have to remember these equations. So please go through this short noise process and the short noise equations which we have discussed. This is one equation to remember in short noise, and the other equation to remember, the other set of equations, is the short noise process occurring in a photodiode. So how we analyze the short noise present in the photodiode, we are checking. Okay. So you have to remember these two things as of now. We'll consider our analysis of thermal noise process and the equations in the next class. Maybe in the next class, we'll be able to complete thermal noise and one more class to discuss the basics of noise. After that, after 2 more classes, we'll consider the effect of noise on every modulation technique. on different amplitude modulation techniques like DSB, SC, SSB, so on, and also on FM. We'll do that analysis, the mathematical analysis. Next, answer your attendance. Fast you should answer. Hemant?
Present, ma'am.
Hemant Kumar? Not there. Himanshu?
Present, ma'am.
Irana? Okay, I think it's already 10:14. Rather than calling all of you, please drop in your USNs in the chat. I'll take the attendance from there. Do it fast. Calling and answering takes time. All please drop in your USNs in the chat. And please read through this. Angle modulation, if you have any doubts, please ask. I don't know how many of you have read through. Have you all entered? If all of you have entered, I'll be ending the meeting. Anybody else left, or shall I end the meeting? I haven't received all the messages.